All right, let's take you to this story now. Declining confidence in governments, growing social inequality and high cost of living are among issues that could intensify unrest around the globe. That's according to a report by insurer Allianze Global Corporate and Speciality. The insurer says political tensions are undermining social cohesion and heightening conflicts. It says the volatile environment poses a serious threat to businesses. To discuss this, I am joined by the company's Ronald Dodo-Tabaziva. Thank you very much for your time here on eNCA. So just first of all, just explain to us, I mean, I can guess because of how world economies are performing at the moment, but what would be the reason behind the increased number of violent protests around the globe?
Good afternoon to you and good afternoon to your listeners. At Allianz, what we do is every year we conduct what we call our Allianz Risk Barometer, where we engage our clients to identify the top 10 risks that would have a big impact should they occur to their businesses. So political violence and terrorism and civil unrest came in at number 10. So our experts did a deep dive, and what they identified is the 5 triggers are increase in cost of inflation, the distrust in the government and institutions by citizens, the increase in the division in the political parties, increase in activism, and also climate and environmental concerns are the big drivers which are now driving the increase in the strikes, riots, and civil commotions. Thank you.
In the context of South Africa, for example, what's worrying is that every time there's protests, when communities are aggrieved, they then start to target schools. But, more recently in the last about, 6-7 years, they've started to loot local stores. And we saw that during the July unrest last week. So what kind of danger does this pose to business, especially when, in South Africa, people started even, stealing from very established stores like malls, etc.?
Yeah, look, it poses a big danger, obvious, to businesses. And these can be impacted in many ways. If you look at it in terms of civil unrest, one is on a direct basis and second is on an indirect basis. I mean, if you look at the July 2021 civil unrest, the direct basis was massive destruction to buildings, the looting, of high-valued items, and also businesses suffering, billions of losses. And what we saw there from the July civil unrest in terms of insured losses, they were in the region of $1.9 billion. But also there's the economic impact. I mean, I think we can see, KZN as a region, they're still reeling, from those after effects. On an indirect basis, what you see is it could result in, denial of access. So where there's been civil unrest, say, destruction to roads, as you mentioned, where they target, roads themselves, it becomes a logistic issue. I think we saw as well KZN, they struggle to get, basic goods out of KZN, but also at the same time to bring in, the necessities such as food. Thank you.
Now, you also say in your report that protests have started to intensify lately, and they've started to become even more violent. Sometimes we even see the violence coming from the police and their retaliation to maintain law and order. Is this a case only in South Africa, or is this globally? And if it is global, what's the reason?
So it's not only centralized South Africa. What you're seeing is global as well. The impact of these attacks, are so catastrophic. The main drivers, you look at from a change in governments. If you look at, for instance, China, where there's been a crackdown in terms of COVID-19 pandemic, I think you can see the anger boiling in the citizens of China, where people are now pushing. They now want to get out and do, the day-to-day work. Also, the sudden increases in prices in terms of basic commodities, in terms of fuel. This is also one driver we've seen. Then also what we see is when there's always a change in government, I think we see this across Africa as well, not only Africa, but in Europe. So it is not only centralized to South Africa, but it is actually, a global issue. Thank you.
Please talk us through what you say in your report is the concern over the rise in activism. I thought that it's a good thing to be an active citizen and to stand up when things go wrong. But your wording in that report says that it's the risk of rising activism. Why is it a risk?
Look, I do agree with you that, look, we want to have active citizens. But, what we are seeing now, with the power of social media, you find if there are movements which are launched, they do tend to spread like wildfire. So you find people start joining them. And as a result, this has been one of the drivers where you find it starts as a small group of people. Obviously, they have a certain objective. But once, it builds up and grows, then you have a lot of people who join in that movement. Eventually, it just escalates. I mean, if you look at July civil unrest, the main issue we had, obviously, was to do with our former president, Jacob Zuma. But you saw how things escalated, where criminal elements and also opportunists then take advantage, and eventually it just becomes too big to contain. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for speaking to us here on eNCA and for your insights. We saw one of the worst protests in South Africa actually back in July of last year. And some people went missing, and they still haven't been found today. That was Allianze head of property insurance, Ronaldo Dodo-Tabaziva.